Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of the Great American Squabble. This is my co host, Unoptimized Fool,
Greetings, hello.
and I'm You Gotta Believe. We are here to bring you insight into modern day politics and world news, so get ready to refuel with the gas. Let's get started. Here's our first topic Donald Trump's recent statements regarding abortion laws. Fool?
So, I'll start with I agree with Trump in this instance. Like I know that he is a little bit inconsistent. Like he expressed the issue that abortion should be left at the states, which in particular I always agree that things should be left up to the states. And I know that he's advocating for no federal ban. And since if federal laws can't protect abortion rights, because yeah, we took out Roe versus Wade, then they can't get rid of abortion rights through the same avenue. So I think this is, more power to the states. We can't say, oh, the federal government can't protect um, abortion rights, so we can't get rid of it. So he also talked about his support for exceptions of abortion in cases of rape, incest, and the mother's life's at risk. I mean, I think that should be everyone's, you know, exceptions to abortion, but unfortunately, it's not the case here in this country. Again, state issues, obviously, but I feel like every state should. Again, that's just my opinion. And my personal beliefs kind of wrap it up. I'm a man, so I can never have a baby, right? So it's not, my decision to decide. But as a father, I think I should have an opinion about this type of thing with the woman. But of course, the woman has the final say in this because it's her body, her choice. Like for example, me and my wife would never get an abortion, but we don't push that stuff on other people. And you know, so there's my thoughts on that.
Okay. And I do agree to an extent with a lot of what you're saying. I do have, of course, a little bit different beliefs. I agree, some of what Trump is saying now too, although I do think that it's kind of inconsistent with what he's been saying overall, and it's an attempt to play both sides of the political spectrum. He's previously suggested support for a national abortion ban after 15 or 16 weeks, only to backtrack and claim that abortion legislation should be left to the states. And I think this indicates that he's more concerned with political expediency than with upholding the rights of women. His statements are a clear attempt to appease both conservatives and liberals. And like I say, I do agree with him kind of backtracking a bit, but I do think he's playing both sides and pandering.
Right.
So, on to our next topic. College will cost up to $95,000 this fall. Schools say it's okay. Financial aid can numb sticker shock. So, on this one, the rising cost of college education is a significant issue because while it's true that financial aid can help alleviate some of these issues, most people don't really get that financial aid. I know that was a problem when I was in school. My parents made just enough money to where I didn't receive this financial aid, but just enough money to where they couldn't, just not enough money to where they could actually help with school and things like that. And so most of America is stuck in that area, and it's the financial aid just needs to be completely reworked, one. But furthermore, this is going to affect jobs in a big way because if people don't have the education to work these, more advanced jobs, we're not going to be able to produce like these other countries like China, Taiwan. When I say, ooh, we gotta be careful saying Taiwan in country here, but you know what I mean. And that's a big issue. Is if they're not getting that education, then they're not going to have that level of efficacy while working those jobs, and that's kind of concerning to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mostly agree with you. My take on all this is, obviously education provides um value to our society. And I've always been against education costing so much. You're trying to better yourself in this country, produce value for this country. Why am I stuck with all this debt, And I have 2 degrees. I got a bachelor's and a master's degree. I had tons of debt. Thankfully, I had great parents that helped me with it. I had financial aid, and Thankfully, I'm out of debt now. But like, imagine if I didn't have that, I would just be scrounging away. Paycheck would be going, you know, to that debt just so because I was trying to. I had this crazy idea that I wanted to be better, right? Also always take federal loans just in case sometimes federal, government is like, hey, here's some loan forgiveness, just an FYI. Um, but there's always this debate of like, should the federal government step in? I always say no, just because I'm more of a state has the right um step on it. Obviously, like private for profit institutes are creating debt pits for students, so some sort of government has to step in here because again, capitalism is kind of failing education. So I would say the state should step in all these things, but also just to kind of go into real quick, a lot of colleges, like I always, like game design is a good degree, engineering, all those have importance. But there's some like filler degrees that people can get. Like I looked some up. Like you can get a major in to be a psychic. You can be a bagpiping major, right? And or you can major in the Beatles, like the band. And people can spend like $60,000 getting a major to learn about the Beatles. And not saying that your passion is bogus. I'm just saying that colleges should
Waste of
not
money.
charge should not charge $60,000 to learn about the Beatles. That's just it's a scheme, It is really a scheme, but um education is important, but some degrees are filler and colleges are need to be better about that.
I like the response. I like it.
Yeah.
On to our next topic. The political fallout from the Israel-Gaza conflict and Hamas's response. Fool, that's on you.
Yeah. This whole conflict is terrifying at human costs. What happened on October 7th was terrible. It was a bad day for the Jewish community. But obviously, there's a lot of debate, do we stand with Israel? Do we stand with Palestine? Do we stand with this and that? And it's a lot of decisiveness. And I think warfare is changing in front of our faces, But even the Afghanistan war wasn't on TikTok, wasn't on YouTube, wasn't live streamed. Like when Israel invaded Gaza, I watched live footage of the invasion. Crazy. It's a crazy thought to think of. I watched a war live. Back in the day, you would have to wait for a week just to learn about something that happened, right? And I think war is now in the forefront of it's not even just like journalism and like the Afghanistan war where you would come back and be like, here's some terrifying pictures. Here's a terrifying live stream. You can't censor a live stream, right? So like my stance on it is I do support Israel in the fact that they want to destroy Hamas. And unfortunately, Hamas is a terrorist organization who has put themselves in positions where their headquarters are under mosques, under schools, under hospitals. And unfortunately, but also Israel definitely needs to step up and be like, we need to eliminate human costs, but it's hard when Hamas is so ingrained in civilian populations. So it's horrendous, but at the end of the day, you know, Hamas needs to go. And unfortunately, um, war is war. And it's a tough situation. Just put it lightly.
Fool with the tough words. All
Yeah,
right.
it's hard. Yeah,
It is. It's hard out there to be a Hamas terrorist, huh?
yeah, it is.
All right. Well, with my response, obviously that battle, whatever they've got going on, the war is a direct result of the long-standing and entrenched power imbalances in the region, and they've kind of had disproportionate use of military force by Israel, and that's led to significant civilian casualties, and that's exasperated, all of this, I think, and it's caused everything to blow up big out of proportion. And, Hamas's response, while often framed as antagonistic, can also be understood sometimes as a reaction to ongoing occupation and the blockade of Gaza. They are a terrorist organization, but I think a lot of the times, sometimes the stuff that the Palestinians are doing is people are seeing Palestinians and Hamas as one, and they aren't.
Yeah,
and
Totally separate
it's
thing.
they
Absolutely.
are totally separate things. But that's not how half of the world sees it right now, and
Yeah.
it's scary because
Hmm.
that's not every Palestinian's a terrorist. That's not how it is. Hamas, those people are
Hmm.
terrorists. Um,
Exactly.
and the community as large has failed to hold Israel accountable for its actions, and it's contributed to the cycle of violence and despair in the region. The United States, in particular, has kind of been giving unwavering support for Israel, although recently they've started to back off a little bit from the aid, depending on how they
Hmm.
are going to go about with their bombings and things like that. And so, uh, yeah, it's a scary situation over there for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah. Like just to add real quick, like unfortunately, I think the only reason why, especially Biden's so against Israel these days, is because a large population of Muslim voters in Michigan are turned against Biden, and I think since he's trying to bid for a reelection, that's why he's being so like anti that is because I think he's getting his hand for. I don't think he would have done that if that population didn't push back from him. Unfortunately.
And that goes back to the pandering we were talking about.
Yep. 100%. Everyone panders. Every left or right pander.
Our next topic: the potential impact of the minimum wage increase in California on job creation. I'll get started on this one.
All right.
Yeah, so the minimum wage in California is increasing to $20 an hour. I do think it's a
Mhm.
positive step forward towards income inequality and improving the standard of living for low wage workers. Uh, Evidence from various studies kind of suggests that raising the minimum wage can have a positive effect on job creation and the overall economy. But contrary to the fears of job losses, recent research kind of shows from Berkeley and other institutions that low wage businesses don't necessarily cut jobs when minimum wages are increased. Instead, these businesses thrive because their employees have more purchasing power, which it makes sense in one way. Moreover, raising the minimum wage can lead to a reduction in turnover. Employees are making more money; they're less likely to try and seek out a new job. Now, of course, there's some caveats to that caveat. Did I say that right? Caveat, caveat.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Could be.
Blah. Blah, blah, blah. We're not a scholar. We're here to talk
How
about
dare you? How dare you
politics,
make a
right?
mistake? Yeah.
But that's obviously there's some hitches and things need to be worked out. But I'd say overall a higher minimum wage is better because right now we need a minimum standard cost of living. The way AI
Hmm.
is starting to take over, and we were just
Absolutely.
talking about colleges not or being too expensive to go to get an actual education and then
Yep.
get these advanced jobs, people are going to be stuck. And so this is
Hmm.
something that's needed, although it's needed and they need to definitely take a look on how to put it into the economy and make sure that it's not draining. How do I put this? We need people to work and we need them to have money, but we don't need people to get lazy, is what I'm saying. And it's the
Hmm.
push for more money
Yeah.
like this can create laziness. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. Like, so just to kind of add to all that, like, I always try to avoid obviously we have this huge problem here in the United States where people aren't getting paid enough to survive, to live, to thrive, to have that American dream. Like housing prices are up, groceries are higher, everything, everything has gone up from, a lot of factors. And so yeah, I always support a minimum wage increase and just normal increases the wages, but I also believe that we shouldn't just shock the system. We shouldn't like you don't wanna shock the system, you wanna do small increments, and yeah, like small increments, it may seem like it's slower progress, but we don't know the ramifications, and I honestly wanna bring up one thing, and I really mostly 100% agree with you, but a lot of people especially on the right say that, "The prices will go up for my food now," or "Automation will take over." Like, yeah, sure, automation might take over, but it's not because people are getting paid more. It's because greedy American corporations see their profit margins being eaten up by this price increase. So even though they're still making millions upon millions of dollars of profit off of this food, like, McDonald's, they're going to raise prices because they know that they can get away with it, right? Like, I think it was either Norway and Sweden where they increased the price of, like, the workers getting paid per hour and the prices of the food stayed the same. It's not a problem of people getting paid more, it's a problem of corporations being greedy. So, when I see people saying, "Oh, just because some lazy person that's on a cook station at McDonald's getting paid $20 is the reason I have to pay more." No, it's some guy in a suit who doesn't wanna give up his yacht. End of discussion. It's corporations being greedy because their bottom dollar is being, changed up.
Yeah, and to add on to that, yeah, I know you had your say, of course, is that people like to think of these jobs like fast food jobs that are minimum wage. Kids work them. Kids are
Mhm.
supposed to be working them. Nobody else is supposed to be working them. Who's working these jobs when the kids are at school?
Exactly.
Like
Like,
it's no, that's not how it works.
they originally started off as, like, kids work in high school jobs, but guess what? Job markets, they mature and they move around. They're not static entities. And I think people trying to make them a high school job doesn't understand that things morph into new things.
Yeah, and
100%.
realizing that you can become a Chick-fil-A general manager and make $120,000 a year. I mean,
Exactly.
sometimes
People
it's worth the grind. Not saying you should go and work at a fast food place and aspire to be that, but there are things
just
you can do. So it's
exactly.
not
There's
it's
a lot
not
of
the end all
avenues to
be all
happiness.
getting a minimum wage job like that. But before
Yeah.
we get lost on that topic, I'll move on to the next one. And I believe with this next topic, you get to start us out. So let's
All
see.
right.
The political dynamics within the Democratic Party, including potential third party or independent candidates.
So I've always heard this from time to time. If you vote third party, you're throwing away your vote. You're destroying your vote. You're basically hurting the incumbent, right? So if I vote third party, if I vote for, I think his name RFK, right, or whoever it is that's doing that third party thing, then you're basically voting for Trump. Total bogus, I think. Total bogus. I think a United States would benefit from more choices. I'm sick and tired. In full disclosure, I voted for Biden in the last general election, and I won't be voting for him again. I was not um, satisfied with his 4 years, but doesn't mean I'm not. It doesn't mean I'm voting for Trump. Okay, get the pitchforks down, guys. Right? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm sick and tired of picking between two old like white guys. Like I'm just sick and tired of this whole system. So third party, I think, is gonna add that. Maybe it's just another old person that we add to the mix, but like you know, it's I'm sick of it being either left or right, is it this side of the story, this side of the story? So, um, in reality, to kind of like tie it all together, the Democratic Party was obviously is pushing for Biden again, and there's been concerns about Biden's health and cognitive ability, but they're going for it. We have the general election here soon,
Full
and it's gonna
send.
be a yeah, full send, and it's gonna be terrifying. Get your seatbelts on, guys. It's gonna be horrendous. It's gonna be It's gonna be a bloodbath to kind of quote like the recent, big terms these days. Um, but if you want to vote third party, vote third party. Even if you're in a swing state, vote for who you want. Don't let your cousin, don't let your mom, don't let your uncle that you only see at Thanksgiving tell you that you wasted your vote on a third party candidate. If you vote, you have not wasted your vote. I actually believe if you don't vote, you wasted your vote. I think everyone should vote because even though you're not into politics, life's about politics. These people control your lives if you didn't know. They control everything. So you have to get political. That's why we're doing this show. We have to get political. The normal American right here, we're two normal Americans. We have to get political right now because they're political and everything's controlled by them. So
Great
there's my
response,
speech.
fool. Great response. That was went on longer than the minute. It was probably 3 minutes there, but I like it.
Yeah,
I like
I
it.
had
You had some things to say about the
I
Democratic
had to get
Party
off my
there.
chest. Yeah.
Well, All right. Well, let's go then. Let's see. So the current dynamics within the Dem Party obviously reflect a significant shift towards like a more diverse and progressive agenda, especially more than ever before. It's far as left as it can be, and you can see the president trying to really appease the far left people while at the same time trying to be as in the middle as possible. And so it's kind of weird getting closer to the election. You see it, and it's definitely weird. It's flip floppy, and I don't like it. And I don't
Yeah,
know who I'd be voting for right now. I'm definitely not voting for Trump, but I might be voting for a third party. That's for sure.
yeah,
Um, but
that's
one
okay.
of the things driving dissatisfaction is their failure to address pressing issues such as the climate change, income inequality, and healthcare reform that they've promised, and has led many to kind of question their commitment to progressive values. They talk about it a lot, but they don't do a lot of things.
Hmm.
Um, it's fueled third party candidates' rises, and people like RFK are offering alternative solutions to these issues. Um, it's important though to recognize, like we were talking about, or like you were talking about the risks associated with supporting third party and independent candidates. Uh, the past the post electoral system. Sorry, guys, I have to have a teleprompter with me because I can't keep this all in my head. But they often face barriers to ballot access and media coverage, and as a result, a third party candidate can sometimes serve as a de facto vote for the candidate from the other side. Um, and that's kind of what Fool was getting into, is they'll tell you it's really a wasted vote, a vote for the candidate you don't want. And no, that's the reason that third party candidate hasn't won is because people are too scared to vote for him for that reason. And so just vote for your third party candidate. I might not like RFK, but that's if you like him, vote for him. Don't be scared to vote for him. So
I've learned pretty quick that I'll never 100% agree with a political person. Like I'll never, and that's okay. You just have to find one that better aligns to your values.
the recent Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott
Mm,
controversy, ooh, following the
yeah,
Key Bridge collapse. That's a touchy one, huh?
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
man, let me tell
Go
you, the
for it.
attacks on Mayor Scott are not only unfounded but deeply rooted in systemic racism.
Hmm.
First, I think it's important to acknowledge that Mayor Scott was elected with a significant majority, indicating that he had strong support from the people of Baltimore. The fact that people are calling him a DEI mayor is so ridiculous, and it's baseless, and it's a clear attempt at distracting from the real issue. It had nothing to do with the bridge collapsing. It's race and identity politics at its worst, and whataboutism, basically. Instead of addressing the structural integrity of the bridge, safety protocols in place, or the response to the crisis, they chose to attack the mayor. And that, I find, is fairly ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, and it's kind of indicative of a larger issue in our country, and it's the politicization of tragedies. Rather than coming
Hmm.
together and trying to figure out how to fix something, we're trying to figure out how to attack the people who are trying to fix the issues.
Yeah.
And that's it's not a way to move forward, guys. Not at all.
No. No. Yeah. I mean, basically what you said, 100%. Like that's it. Obviously, that bridge, when that ship lost power and hit that bridge, like take a physics class, guys. Okay, if you think that the mayor somehow caused this problem, take a physics class. That bridge was gonna get destroyed no matter what. That's a big ship, you know, a lot of mass hitting that ship. I mean that bridge. So any bridge would probably faltered there. It was built in the 70s. Ships weren't that big in the 70s. Um, and it was just a tragedy, and blaming the mayor and calling, "Oh, they just voted him because he was of his race," is 100% horse. It is, you should feel bad if you have that opinion. And I also saw too, just going into it a bit, like I know an FBI agent was there at the speech and gave a thing saying, "Oh, we don't think of any foul play." And I saw it was a live stream. And I saw so many people being like, "Why is the FBI here?" Now I'm thinking it was an insider job. It's like just because the FBI is there doesn't mean it's always an inside job. It's not some weird conspiracy. It's just they're investigating because obviously a port has been affected, economy and transportation is affected. They have to be there to investigate because it could have been, it could have been a potential terrorist attack, but it wasn't. It was an accident. So that's why they were there. But people need to just see the world as it is sometimes, and that sometimes accidents unfortunately happen.
Me and you kind of agreed very,
Yeah,
very
100%.
much on that one, 100%.
Yeah,
That's the first one, folks, but I mean,
there it
everybody
is.
should agree on that one. There's no
Common
black and
ground.
white
Look at
on that
that.
one. Haha.
Right.
There's no black and
Hey,
white. That one really is as clear as day. Like,
yeah, that.
it's okay.
Yeah.
But the concerns about mail delivery
Mhm.
delays affecting voting in the 2024 elections, this might be the biggest issue we talk about today, but fool, go ahead,
It
take it off.
m mail delivery delays. The whole 2020 election will go down as America's biggest blunder in the sense of distrust. Like, what happened with I'm not gonna go into each side's argument on, like, what happened, but what the outcome is the same. A ton of distrust. Republicans don't trust mail-in ballots, Democrats have embraced it. Do I do mail-in ballots? No. I don't think mail is secure enough. In my opinion, I don't think it's secure enough for my vote. I also don't do electric machining. I also do the hand counting at my because in Rhode Island we have an option to do the electric ballots or the handwritten ballots that get counted. I always do the handwritten just because I think I rather have someone there do it for me and instead of that machine again because I work with technology, you work with technology. I always worry about that, but there's so much concern that, what if their votes aren't counted? What if they're not added in? Why is elections taking so many days to count stuff? Because it delays the elections, and it's such a dynamic thing that it's going to bring more mistrust into our election process that 2020 already did. Um, so I think it's going to continue and probably get even worse with just the concerns. Um, that's kind of a very glossed over of this all because again, this is a deep conversation.
Yeah, you could get very, very deep, and there's lots of facets of mail delivery that you could talk about. It's not just you know worrying about the actual ballots themselves.
Hmm.
It's mail delivery as a whole, which I can
Hmm.
kind of talk about in mine. Um, the concerns are real. I personally, I do mail in voting. I haven't had an issue with it, especially because you can confirm your vote, which is nice. At least in Arizona, you can. You can call after
Hmm.
the fact and
That's
confirm
nice.
and know who you've voted for, which is great. But that being said, the Postal Service is going through a major issue right now with widespread slowdowns in mail and package delivery, not just with mail and voting, just everything. And that's scary because delays for voting, I mean, if your vote doesn't count, that's one of the biggest parts of being a citizen is 4 years, right? Wasted down the drain right there. You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, you just participated
Poof.
and poof,
Yeah.
your participation's gone and you didn't have a say. Basically, that's the worst thing to think of, especially if you care about this country. But it's not just affecting ballots; it's affecting important documents and medications for many Americans. Um,
True.
Hundreds of veterans in Virginia actually had their colon cancer screening tests invalidated after the results took months to arrive by mail. It's not only a logistical issue, but a matter of life and death for some. And, it's something that the U.S. needs to look into and
Hmm.
probably give the Postal Service more money so that we have more drivers, we have more accountability, and the system just flows better.
Man. Yeah, I know about that story. That's terrible. And as obviously, I mean, just to add on to that, I mean, as the population in America goes up, obviously, more and more strain will be added on. And the Postal Service is supposed to be a money pit. It's supposed to be a service to the American people. So, I forget who it was that tried to say, "Oh, why do we support?" I think it was Trump, I believe, that said that we should stop funding the mail stuff. But what? Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
No, that's a terrible idea. We'll move on to the
Yeah,
next one, but that is a terrible idea. That might be a good topic to talk about for next week or
I
something.
agree. Yeah, I agree.
All right. Our next one is the public's perception of President Biden's performance and the 2024 election outlook. Now, this is kind of weird because we had one earlier that was talking about, the Democrats and their outlook, but this is more of Biden's perception. And so
Right.
I'll get started on that one. I think he should be evaluated on a more nuanced and comprehensive level. Despite the challenges he's faced, including a global pandemic and economic instability, he's really made significant strides in several key areas. Under his admin, unemployment rate has decreased, while millions of jobs have been created. And recently, the Inflation Reduction Act has been a major step forward in addressing climate change and promoting clean energy. In terms of the 2024 election, though, it's crucial to recognize that the landscape's ever changing. Recent polls suggest that it's a tight race, although Biden has pulled in front by 4 points in all major polls, which is actually crazy because for a while Trump has I think the whole time Trump's been leading them, and polls don't really mean anything, as we know from the 2016 election, right? But
oh man,
polls really mean nothing, but that indicates a shift and change, and whether that's people having support for Biden or not supporting Trump, it's remained to be seen. But without his faults, since he took office, what I meant to say is he isn't without his faults. Since he took office, there's been a notable increase in grocery prices. My family's felt it. I'm sure your family's felt it. According to a report from the FTC, 3 of the largest grocery retailers have seen their profits rise more than 6% during the pandemic and have maintained elevated margins in the years following. And so that's money that they're making for basically their executives, and they're raising prices and their executives are making more money, and that's an issue. The Biden administration has acknowledged that, and they're trying to kind of make legislation to help ease the record prices, but despite those efforts, we haven't really seen anything to help that so far, and I'm hoping something is done soon.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues with like just general pricing, and it's going to affect. Even though, again, Biden doesn't really have control of these corporations. We live in a free society. There's still things to be done. I mean, just during the pandemic, Amazon's profits are crazy. Just to kind of gloss over that real quick, but regarding Biden, I think his biggest advantage going into the election for him, is that he's not Trump. I think that's he's going to win a lot of moderates by that. He's just not Trump, and as a candidate, I think that's weak. Obviously, it's going to get him votes, but I think that's weak because he can't stand on his own merit, really. But like, as someone who voted for Biden and won't vote for Biden, this is the reasons. One, I felt like his Biden economics isn't really working. My groceries have gone up, inflation. Um, the border situation, which is another bag in itself, I feel like is a disaster. Again, I'm not like far right with this, but I think there needs to be more done there. Um, I do believe that um, his mental health is declining in the sense of like he won't take that cognitive test, which makes me worry as a voter. I have a right to worry about that. Um, but in the election, just to kind of sum it up, I've been watching the polls again. Polls really don't matter, but he has an uphill battle. His base, Trump's base, is currently extremely angry. They feel betrayed. They think the 2020 election was stolen, and that the system and the deep state is doing all this stuff. And he has a very uphill battle. And I honestly, to say this, I'll be surprised if he wins. I will. I will be surprised.
Bold predictions from an optimized fool today.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Don't quote me.
I do think Donald Trump is going to win this election. I'm not going to be voting for him, but I do think he's going to win this election.
Yeah, I have the same opinion.
Unless the only thing that's going to stop that man is dying.
Yeah.
So,
or Biden for some reason just slashes inflation. Like I go to the grocery store and my bill is like half the price. I'm like, maybe.
With the way the war in Gaza, Israel, all that stuff was going on, man, we
Hmm.
might be worrying about a world war here soon, trying to get the support. But
That
that's a
should be
different
a
time
future
thing, you know what I
topic.
mean?
Yeah.
Trying to get the support of
Absolutely.
the American people starting a war or something. That's a conspiracy theory,
Yeah.
man.
I
If
mean,
that
hey,
ain't,
listen. They say if there's a war, the sitting president never gets always gets reelected. So
yep,
take
that's
that in
exactly what I was
consideration,
thinking.
Biden.
That's exactly what I was thinking. He probably
Start a
knows it.
war. Hmm.
All right, the incident where 15 states declared a state of emergency ahead of a solar eclipse. Fool?
So yeah, I actually had to look this up because I was like, why is everyone declaring an emergency? Are we conspiracy theorists now? Is the moon gonna eat us? Like, and it actually makes sense. Every um solar eclipse has actually been state of emergencies for the states affected because so much traffic. There's so many people entering the state that food services like supermarkets get wiped out for people wanting to have food. Restaurants are booked up, roads are packed, hotels, Airbnbs. Like there was a diagram online of showing Airbnbs in the United States all being booked up full, and it literally followed the line of the 100% like coverage of the sun, and it was very funny. So yeah, it makes sense now that I researched it. I thought we were being conspiracy theorists here, but it's just their systems are going to be strained. So that's what those systems are there for. So I think this is a lighter note of like what we're talking about, but I mean it makes sense. Fuel especially too. Gas stations are going to be crazy. And then also cellular network too. The
Yeah.
networks are taking in like 3 times the load, and sometimes it fails, and then boom, everything's with the phone these days. Everything's online, so I can see why they did that now.
Yeah, and mine's not going to be as long as yours because we pretty much touched on most of the same topics there when
Yeah.
discussing this. You're right. This was a little bit of a lighter topic. I thought it would be a fun one to put in there since the eclipse did happen this week. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's just I didn't realize it either, but you're right. In the line of path of the eclipse, after doing research, it's just them doing a state of emergency and making sure that, all the local fire, police, medical, all that, they're prepared, traffic's good to go. Um, various agencies and organizations ensure that essential services, transportation, communication, healthcare remain functional during that event because there is so much traffic that you have to worry about that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's smart. It just demonstrates the government's commitment to preparedness and public trust, even in such a event that doesn't seem like it would need one. It's smart. So glad they were
Yeah.
thinking and they were on their toes on that.
Yeah.
Nothing
Kind of
bad
like,
seemed to happen. We didn't hear any news of, any
yeah. I mean, there
crazy
was,
like 20 car pile up crashes during the
yeah,
eclipse or
there was
something. But
probably some accidents. There were probably some police incidents where people were angry at each other in traffic and localized incidents. But I think because of the state of emergency, they had those assets in place to make it a small problem versus a bigger problem.
agreed. Well, that leads us to our last topic here, which I will get started on, and that is the Department of Justice requesting prison time for a woman who found Ashley Biden's diary. Ooh-wee.
Whew,
This one's a
big one.
touchy subject and a big one. Yeah, we were kind of talking
Yeah.
about this before the show a little bit, and well, this one's interesting because the woman who found her diary, she, from what I understand, talking to you and reading some articles, she was staying at a friend's house, and Ashley Biden stayed there at the same time, and she took her journal. Uh, from what I understand, Ashley Biden left her journal there, and this woman took it and sold it to Project Veritas. For you guys who don't know, Project Veritas is an extremely right wing organization known for its controversial practices. It's worth noting, though, that journalism kind of really often relies on obtaining information through various means, and so the question of her actions being a legitimate journalistic endeavor or not is a matter of debate, and that's scary because the Department of Justice did request prison time, and it can be seen as politically motivated given the sensitive nature of the diary's contents, and the potential for political embarrassment. I've already seen some stuff come out of the diary. Nothing that could really harm Biden, but stuff that people are trying to twist and turn from what
Yeah.
I've seen that can make him look interesting. And it can be seen as an attempt by the DOJ to suppress information that might be damaging to a political figure. And it raises concerns, like serious concerns, about freedom of press and the potential for the legal system to be used as a tool for political retribution. Personally, I don't think Amy Harris should have been arrested,
Hmm.
although I do think what she did was morally wrong.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, just to kind of end it out here, like, um, I obviously this isn't about what's in the diary. I mean, what's in the diary? There's a couple things that are like it raises the eyebrow, but again, this is not about that. It's more about the Department of Justice requesting the prison time, and so she actually Amy Harris, the one that took the diary, actually did plead guilty to conspiring to commit interstate transportation of stolen property. Right? So she was charged on that. They say that the reason why the DOJ is requesting prison time for this is because Harris is currently throughout this whole process was failing to comply with court orders and also attempts to delay the proceedings. So the DOJ was like, "Well, we're going to give you more prison time because you're not working with us." So I think it's not because she took the diary. I mean, obviously she was charged with taking the diary and selling it, but it's not about like the Bidens being like, "Oh, we want this person gone." It's more like you're delaying the process of justice. You're failing to comply. That's an illegal offense in the courts. So it's more, obviously it was not morally right, like you said, to to take that because it's a diary. It's personal. But again, she left it there, so it's like, how personal is it if she leaves something there? Whatever. But um, obviously it started off as a political move because you're giving it to Project Veritas, right, or however you say that. Um, and they're very extremely right wing, so of course it's going to be political, right? Because she made it political. She sold it to a very far right, organization. So of course it's political. It's always going to be political because the first move was to make it political. So you can't complain it's political when Amy Harris made it political. So but that's why they're trying to get more time is because she's just failing to comply right now. So
Yeah, that
which
makes sense, but I don't know if she should have to comply in the
yeah,
first
I
place. It's a
I
weird, like,
agree. I
I
agree
think
because
it's
it's a gray
morally
area.
wrong, right?
Hmm.
I wouldn't do it, but is it illegal? Is what she
Yeah,
did
it's a
illegal?
gray zone because she was um it was a friend's home in Delray Beach, Florida. It's in 2020, and um the items belonging to Ashley Biden was left there after she stayed at that residence. So she stayed at the residence and left some stuff there. And that's where Amy Harris came into play and was like, "Hey, I found this diary and it has some weird things in it. I'm going to sell it to this group." So, yeah, it's strange. It's really this gray zone. It
Yeah,
really is.
it is, and it'd be interesting to see where it goes. Just because
Yeah.
it could have major implications on the future of journalism and
And
publications
and
and things like
honestly,
that.
if I just to end it out like with that, I would say like it would probably be best if the DOG just drops it because the fact that they're pushing for, even though that she's failing to comply with orders and attempts to delay the proceedings, it's gonna make them look like the DOJ is currently trying to hush this woman. It was like, "Hey, don't talk about the Bidens. We want to get them reelected." Then the conservative base, the far right, those conspiracy theories of the Clintons and the Bidens controlling everything, it's gonna get emboldened. It's gonna be like, "Oh, see, there it is. There's the influence. They're trying to attack this wonderful woman, Amy Harris." Putting wonderful in quotes because that's everyone is a golden child when it comes to protecting the far right agenda, but you know what I mean? Like it's like I think it'll cause more harm if they continue this hunt for her.
I do agree. It draws way too much attention to it. Like, is there
Hmm.
something you don't want us to see? Like, just
Yeah,
what's up with it?
yeah,
But
yeah,
I think we had a great first episode there,
yeah.
Fool. Do you have any
Fantastic.
closing arguments?
I just um, I would just say like everything we talk about. I think again, I say this to, like people who are watching. I know like A lot of people in my life, I talk about politics in real life, like at the kitchen table, and everyone's like, "Okay, okay, Mitchell, that's cool, right? Let's talk about sports." And like some people are like, "Oh, I don't get into politics. Oh, I'm not into that stuff." I think you should, because again, like I talked about this earlier, is that everything we do in our life is controlled by a politician. How people get married, like if you're gay, if you want to get married, you can't do that in some states, or you can't do certain things in certain states. It's because some politician said you can't, right? So you have to get political, right? Because life is about politics. So it might be uncomfortable to talk about this stuff, and it might be uncomfortable to hear this stuff. You might not agree with me. You might not agree with believe here. That's okay, right? That's fine. We need the talk, because when we stop talking to each other, that's when problems start happening, right? When the right and the left stop talking to each other, that's how hatred starts. And when hatred starts, that's when the actual civil war, like everyone's like, "Oh, civil war, civil war." That's how it starts, right? Because we forget to talk to each other. So, talk about politics, no matter how uncomfortable it is, just talk about it. And you're making the first step being here, like listening to this stuff. So, just
It
get
is
political, because your life is political no matter if you like it or not.
2024. It's time to get uncomfortable.
It is 100%. Like, do you think I like talking about the Gaza and Israel stuff? Because that's so controversial. You might get canceled these days talking about it. Like, me saying I support Israel, there's a lot of people on X with that would probably, attack me right now.
He's
I mean,
about to
I
get
probably,
carpet bombed as we speak, Chet.
yeah, exactly. Like, just say something, just believe in what you have to believe. Just don't, you know, obviously your belief should never bring hatred, should never bring someone down, but just, yeah, just be okay with having an opinion and having someone disagree with that opinion, right? It's
Yeah,
not the end of the world.
and I agree. I agree with everything you just said. It's important, especially now more than ever, to get involved with politics.
Hmm.
2024 is an election year. It's part of the reason that me and you decided to do this was because we thought it would be a great time to talk about some of these issues that are going to be impacting us in the next generations for, the next 4 years. And then added to that, this election is going to probably change the landscape of things, not just for the next 4 years, but as we see for the next probably 20 to 40, because of
Hmm.
we have a president who's currently kind of going through his mental incapacities, and then a one who's running for president who's also, in my opinion, got his own mental incapacities, and everybody's just fine
Yep.
with that. I don't
It's
understand how
crazy.
everybody's just fine with that, but
Yeah.
it's we're here to talk about it. We're here to bring you the real
Hmm.
news, and we do want to thank everyone for watching the first episode of the Great American Squabble. We appreciate you refilling with the gas, and we will be back next week with my co-host, Unoptimized Fool. You gotta believe. Thank you. Take care.
Goodbye.